Hi guys, it's Miss Smoot, and today we're going to talk a little bit about part two of Fahrenheit 451. I'm not going over every single detail, but there are some parts that always really give students some problems or they just don't really know what it is, and so I'm here to help. You have some activities to do this week. Make sure you get those done. You have like a kind of like a touching activity, like to see how well we did with part one, part two. And that's for your attendance due Friday. And we have a survey about if we want to meet next week, because I know that you guys definitely would have some kind of questions, probably, about things in the book that I haven't really talked about. And so I'd love to be able to answer those for you. So I need to find a time. So make sure you answer that. All right. I'll go ahead and pull up my presentation stuff. So the first thing that people typically struggle with is the name. There we go. Boom, boom, boom. The first thing they really typically struggle with is, oh no. Can I do it like this? Hey, when I start at the end. There we go. The name of the section, the sieve in the sand. I've said sieve for like the longest time, and I realized it's actually, I guess, pronounced sieve. So come see, come saw. So a sieve, in case you didn't know, is kind of like a strainer. You probably have one in your house. It looks like this, and like I use mine for strawberries and like when I'm cooking meat and stuff, or like someone in my class was like, "Oh, hey, we use that when we went to Dahlonega for gold mining." Yeah, it's like those things. And so the whole point is it helps get out all the material like that'll fall through, and so you get whatever you're trying to get, like grapes or gold pieces or whatever. And so it's named the sieve in the sand because Montag has a memory about when he was a kid. Let's see. Boop, 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 boop. I'm on page 74 just to kind of talk about it. Once as a child, he had sat upon a yellow dune by the sea in the middle of the blue and hot summer day, trying to fill a sieve with sand because some cruel cousin had said, "Fill the sieve and I'll give you a dime." And the faster he poured, the faster it sifted through with a hot whispering. His hands were tired, the sand was boiling, the sieve was empty. Seated there in the midst of July without a sound, he felt the tears move down his cheeks. And so, as Montag is trying to sit on the train and read his book, that's the memory that comes to mind. So he had told himself when he was on the train, like, "Oh, I will, I'll just read as much as I can and just like put it in my brain, and then like something I'll have to stick. I'll have to learn something." We've definitely all done that, like the night before a test is due, and we're like, "Oh, I'll just like study all my notes and I'll just cram my head full of math or science or whatever, and then I'll just remember it." And it doesn't really work because we don't understand it. If we just try and cram through things, or like Spanish words, try and cram as many Spanish words as you can in your brain. If you don't understand what it is, it's not going to work. And so, like how the sand would thaw through the sieve because it's full of tiny little holes, that's how he feels reading the book, is he's shoving all these words in his brain, but they're just falling through. All right, sorry, starting back at the beginning. Boo, 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 boo. Boo-doo-doo-doo. Montag is reading with Mildred in the floor on page 70, talking about the cave. I've heard rumors the world is starving, but we're well fed. Is it true the world works hard and we play? Is that why we're hated so much? I've heard the rumors about hate too once in a long while over the years. Do you know why? I don't. That's for maybe the books can get us half out of the cave. They just might stop us from making the same damn insane mistakes. So what he's referencing, which like quite the reference to make for someone who doesn't really read books, is the philosophical idea of Plato's allegory of the cave. And so I'm going to post this video for you guys to watch so that we can kind of help you out. But as you're watching Plato's cave video, so you can like pause this and go watch it, think about how it could connect with what Montag is going through, and I think you'll be okay. I'll probably put in the specific times you should watch. Excuse me. Because you don't need the entire video, we just need like 2 minutes of it. I'll say 3 minutes of it. Gotta love Ted. All right. Boop. The memory that he has of Faber. So he thinks of this man that he met in the park, and the fact that Faber is so bold to be reading poetry in the park or not reading poetry in the park, Like, I feel like it shows he's just over it and over this world, because let's be honest, if you did that, you probably end up getting turned in, and then you'd be put in an asylum or you'd be killed. And so I kind of think Faber was like trying to give up at that point, like he just felt lost, or do you think he was trying to find people who are like him? I don't know. I'd love to know y'all's opinions. So maybe we can talk about that next week when y'all come to our video chat. And so the fact that Faber felt so bold enough to give his address to Montag, you could interpret that so many ways. But the important piece is Montag doesn't turn him in, he just keeps it. And so that's what Montag goes to now. I'll be very clear and pretty straightforward. I always love to hear the theories that students have about what happened to Clarice, but the matter of fact is we don't see her again. So if she's dead, or if she's gotten taken away, or if she disappeared into the figment of Montag's imagination, whatever, she's gone. So Montag needs someone to help lead him through his next step of the journey. Like, he's ready to take in knowledge and learn something, but we learned, like, obviously trying to sit on the floor and read books, he can't do it by himself, so he needs someone. So that's where he's turned to now with that address. He's looking up Faber. Boop, boop, boop. As he's about to leave the house, Mildred asking, aren't you going to come back and watch the show with me? I'm on page 73. Montag stopped at the door, his back turned. Millie? Silence. What? Millie, does the white clown love you? No answer. Millie does. He licked his lips. Does your family love you very much, love you with all their heart and soul, Millie? He felt her blinking slowly at the back of his neck. Why'd you ask a silly question like that? He felt he wanted to cry, but nothing would happen to his eyes or his mouth. And so I feel like in that moment, as he's about to leave his house, like to go like find these books, he realizes Millie isn't interested in it. She doesn't really care about learning about books. She just wants to watch her TV. Montag's asking her, does your family love you? Do they really, truly love you? Because that's where Millie spends all her time, in those three walls with the family every single day. And so he's trying to point out to her that she can give them as much love as she wants, but ultimately she is left alone. She is no one, because they don't care about her. Denham's dentifrice. I have a feeling this is probably confusing for a lot of people. And so I'm going to kind of try and help out. Typically, what I'll do is I'll have someone read the Denham's lines while I'm reading Montag's thoughts in like the narrator's voice. But we'll try and go with some different voices. I went to the bottom of 74. He clenched the book in his fists. Trumpets blared. Denham's dentifrice. Shut up, thought Montag. Consider the lilies of the field. Denham's dentifrice. They toil not. Denham's. Consider the lilies of the field. Shut up. Dentifrice. He tore the book open, flicked the pages, and felt to them as he were blind. He picked at the shape of the individual letters, not blinking. Denham's, spelled D-E-N. They toil not, neither do they. A fierce whisper of hot sand through an empty seas. Denham does it. Well, so basically, as he's sitting there on the train, he's being bombarded by this ad. And as it goes on, it says that people are kind of sitting there, like, tapping their feet to the rhythm of Denham's. And we have that too in our society. We definitely all have like ads that get stuck in your head. I was talking with my first period kids yesterday, and everyone's like, let's see, the Stanley Steamer gets your home cleaner, like that was a common one. The McDonald's ba-da-ba-ba-ba, I'm loving it, like that kind of jingle goes with that, and it just kind of gets stuck in your head sometimes. Like, I'll be mumbling it later today probably. But the point of it is, they don't have silence in this community on the train. They don't have time to talk to each other because no one's talking. They're all just kind of sitting there kind of jingling along to the song, because they don't have the need or the wish to make a connection, because there's nothing to fill. There's nothing to think about. And so they are being bombarded by information all the time. They can't actually make any good thoughts or connections. And so as he's trying to sit there and read his book, it keeps interrupting his brain from like be able to concentrate on what he's reading. Because you have to remember, up until like a week and a half ago, we'll say 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks ago, Montag was pretty stupid. He never had any thoughts like about like, oh, I should question things. Yes, he stole books over the course of a year, which is a great step in the right direction, but that doesn't make you smarter. Trust me, having books made you smarter. I'd be the smartest person. I have a lot of books. And so he's kind of losing it as he's trying to get a hold of this book, and he can't. And so that's part of why he's going to go see Faber, is he's struggling. So Faber has a lot of things to say. He talks about 3 things that we need, and we can kind of talk about that in reference to Montag. First, he says that we need texture and we need substance. And so there's 2 instances of this that are important. On page 79, Faber says, we are living in a time when flowers are trying to live on flowers instead of growing on good rain and black loam. And so I struggled to find a picture of it, but you don't ever really see it because it's not very common for flowers to grow on other flowers. Yes, it definitely stole this image from Shutterstock. You can't have flowers successfully grow on, like out of other flowers, without killing one of them or them both suffering, because it's kind of hard for one flower to pull enough nutrients for itself, much less for a whole other flower. And so it can't really support itself and the other flower. And so it's like in the society, people are trying to live off of each other, but they don't have anything of substance. They're just pretty flowers. They don't do things like, they aren't like a fruit tree or like something that could give back and could like provide with us nutrients too. So we can't really live off of each other in society because we aren't ready yet. We don't have substance. The other thing to kind of talk about is Hercules and Antaeus. The legend of Hercules and Antaeus, you should probably know from our background note stuff, is it took forever to find a picture that didn't have like genitalia. So we've got Hercules on the ground and Antaeus is in his hands. And how it worked was Antaeus, if you kind of remember from your background notes, he got all of his strength from standing on the earth. So as long as he was touching the earth, he could not be beat. He was unstoppable. So Hercules had to rip him off of the ground and then he could kill him because the ground is what gave him his strength. Surprise, surprise, as Faber says, you know the legend of Hercules and Antaeus, the giant wrestler whose strength was incredible so long as he stood firmly in the earth, but when he was held rootless in midair by Hercules, he perished easily. If there isn't something in that legend for us today in the city in our time, then I'm completely insane. So, kind of how it breaks down is with Hercules and Antaeus. Antaeus has all the strength as long as he's connected to the earth. And so like in this society, people could be independent as long as they would have what? Substance. They need some kind of substance. So where are we going to get substance from? However, to kind of try and separate Antaeus from this strength, so separating society from this understanding, Hercules, aka the government, had to disconnect it. And so they had to support that idea. Boom, boom, boom. And so on page 81 is like the best quote, kind of to summarize the three things that people need, according to Faber. Number 1, as I said, quality of information. So let's think about Montag. He has quality information now. He's got this book. It's probably the last rendition of the Bible in the world, says Faber. I'm sorry, in the country. Number 2, leisure to digest it. So people need time. This kind of goes along with Dindum's Dinterfis on the train. Montag had substance, but he didn't have time to kind of like process it and take it in because there's all this noise happening, all these distractions. He couldn't concentrate, and he needed time to be able to concentrate and kind of digest things. And then number 3, the right to carry out actions based on what we learned from the interaction of the first 2. So we need to be able to act from what we've learned, because what's the point of learning otherwise? So they hatched their plan. I think it's pretty obvious what their plan is, so I feel good about that. And as he's heading home, he gets to have Faber in his ear. So basically Faber gets to act like as a guiding voice to Montag. Now, it is interesting to me that Faber didn't leave his house at all. He's being very passively involved with this. So you can kind of assess who's taking more risk here, who's actually putting themselves on the line for learning more. The fireman or the former English teacher who values books so much. So on page 89 and 90, everyone comes over to Millie's house. It's Miss Bowles and Miss Phelps. And they all come over to watch the White Cloud, and isn't it grand? And it's so great. And they like, there's a commercial, or is it part of the show? And this one's drinking orange juice, and you can see it go down in her stomach. And then out come white cartoons clowns that chopped each other's limbs to the accompaniment of immense incoming tides of laughter. So they were showing really deranged stuff. I thought this was fitting. on TV to laughter and happy music, and Mildred and her friends are thrilled. They're like, "Oh, this is hilarious." Um, so you do need to know the difference between Mrs. Phelps and Mrs. Bowles. Mrs. Phelps and her husband, Pete, have a very interesting relationship. It's her third marriage, and they've taken this vow because Pete's in the army, like, oh, if he dies, no tears, no hurt feelings, just go ahead and move on. And like, ma'am, that's so sad. That's your husband. That's the one you should hope would care about. Hold on, I think I have to sneeze. Wait. Sorry about that. Good thing there's no one in here. Okay. So Miss Phelps and her husband, they don't have this kind of connection. And the fact that it's their third marriage, and let's be honest, if they're about Mildred's age, they're like in their 30s. Third marriage, that's so many to go through. And so she and her husband have this disconnect. And like, isn't that the whole point of being married? Someone just like to have connection and someone who can support you. So yeah. And then Mrs. Bowles. Blah, 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 blah. And talking about how she treats her children. La 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 la. Oh, let me back up. 92. I wouldn't say that for Mrs. Bowles. I've had 2 children by cesarean section. In case you didn't know, a cesarean section is a C-section, which is when they cut open your stomach to get down into like the womb, and they take the baby out that way instead of the baby being born naturally. And a lot of times they have to do that, like if there's going to be a problem with birth or like if the baby won't fit, they take it out by C-section. But in this society, Miss Bowles opted to have a C-section. She's like, I'd rather have the C-sections. And I'll be honest, kind of like putting my own opinion on it. If you have a C-section, it's quicker, you're in less pain because they give you lots of good drugs, and you don't have to go through all like the horrors of like pain and pushing because they've already like given you all the medication, so you can't feel anything from like basically below your ribs. You're numb. And so it's the least painful way to give birth, I guess. So she wanted the most convenient way. I'm not faulting C-sections. I'm just saying Miss Bowles definitely didn't choose them for like any other reason except for her own comfort and like vanity, basically. Oh, and also because they can be scheduled, so there's no surprises. Um, not no use going through all that agony for a baby. So like, see, she doesn't care about the baby so much as like not being in pain. The world must reproduce, the race must go on. Besides, they sometimes look just like you, and that's nice. 2 cesareans turn the trick. Yes, sir. Oh, my doctor said cesareans aren't necessary. You've got the hips for it. Everything's normal, but I insist. Cesareans are not. Children are ruinous. You're out of your minds, Miss Phelps. So here's what Miss Bowles does with her kids. I flunk the children in school 9 days out of 10. I put up with them when they come home 3 days a month. It's not bad at all. You heave them into the parlor and turn the switch. It's like washing clothes. Stuff laundry in and slam the lid. Mrs. Bowles tittered. They just as soon kick as kiss me. Thank God I can kick back. So in 1 month, she has her kids in school every single day except for 3 days. So they come home once every 10 days. And they don't have family activities planned. They don't spend time together. Don't even look like they do dinners together. She just puts them in the parlor room in front of the TV. So like she just has this disconnect from her kids. And she's okay with that. With the election. Because I was like, let's talk politics to appease Guy. We're so fun. They have the idea of Noble versus Hogue. And as the women are talking, they talk about how Noble is good looking. He is smooth talking. He is tall. Even the name Noble sounds great because he just sounds noble. Meanwhile, Hogue looks like a toad, is fat, and has like thinning, gross hair. So in the society, people are very vain. Who are they going to vote for? Oh, and also Hogue picks his nose on TV. Gross. Of course they pick Hogue. So my question is, don't you think the government knows that? And so of course they picked these 2 candidates, one who was good looking and tall and fashionable and had a nice smile, and put him ahead of the guy who was frumpy and picks his nose and is unkempt. Like, of course people I feel like would go for Noble, and they knew that. And so that's why they put up 2 candidates. So let's be honest, aren't the elections like in the society kind of sort of rigged? The Sea of Faith. I'm gonna let you guys kind of chew on this for a while. I want its substance. Now we need some leisure. We're gonna talk about this next week because it's very important. The Sea of Faith. It's a great poem. And so I want you to look at the poem and how people react to the poem. And I'll kind of help you out that way. Oh, two things that might help you out. In case you didn't know what a girdle is, this is a girdle. It's like when you tighten up a waist, you might have seen them in like, period pieces or movies or whatever. And then like talking about the beach coming and going. So like when the tide's in, it looks great. When the tide can pull back, sometimes it looks rocky like that. So we will talk more about this next week. Don't worry, I haven't forgotten. I just wanted to kind of digest with you guys. So I'll post a video about that next week. All right, friends, that's all I have. Make sure you get your stuff done for this week. I'm not taking part 2 questions this week. You're just going to turn in part 2 and part 3 questions next week, so don't forget about those. I hope y'all are having a good week. I hope it's been a nice short week because we had Monday off. And I will talk to you guys later. Bye.